Hello, everyone, and welcome to the last episode of Season 3 of Let's Talk Elephants. Thank you to everyone who has listened to every and any episode this season, as your support does not go unnoticed. For my final guest this season, I will be interviewing Camryn Levert on a topic that I have discussed with many guests on many different episodes, but never fully dedicated an entire episode to it by itself, and that is the topic of polyamory. Camryn has engaged in polyamorous relationships in her personal life for the last few years. So this episode is going to be more of like a personal account on what that experience has been like for her. If you're more interested in like a technical or psychological approach to this topic, I would head over to my episode with Dr. Marta Miana. However, I will most likely touch on some of the psychological findings behind this topic on today's episode. This was something that I was actually interested in going to graduate school to study, so my own body of knowledge on this topic is rather large compared to some of the other topics I have interviewed people about on past episodes. So before jumping into the content for today, I want to make some important distinctions regarding like the labels and language around polyamorous relationships, just so everyone is on the same page. So sometimes terms like swingers or open relationships and open marriages are used in place of the word polyamorous or polyamory. And although all of those words describe consensually non monogamous arrangements, they are not all the same thing. So polyamorous relationships usually involve one or both people being in an actual romantic relationship with one or multiple people outside of their primary partner. And oftentimes there actually is no primary partner in a polyamorous relationship, as all relationships within that arrangement are usually seen as equal. An example would be a throuple, which is what Camryn experienced and will be discussing with us today. Or you might see like a husband and wife that both have their own boyfriend and girlfriend outside of their relationship. It is not polygamy, which is one man can have multiple wives, but the wives are not allowed to have any other relationships outside of that one man. Open relationships, on the other hand, are usually strictly sexual and sometimes involve like a don't ask, don't tell policy. It would be more like both people in the relationship are able to go out and be physical with other people separate from each other, but there's no strings attached, and oftentimes the other partner doesn't even want to hear about the sexual behaviors of their partner. Swingers, on the other hand, are couples that both agree to engage sexually with a third or multiple parties together at the same time. So if you've ever had like a husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend approach you and say something like, hey, my wife thinks you're really pretty, blah, 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 there's a good chance that they might be swingers. So now that all of that is cleared up, Camryn, can you please just briefly introduce yourself and then start by sharing which of these types of relationships you have engaged in personally?
Yeah. Well, hello. My name is Camryn Levert. I am 24 years old, originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and I now live here in Vegas. Thank you for sharing all of that because like there's a lot of confusion and
Right.
as you stated, and like I just learned a lot from that. Me personally, I was in a throuple, so I kind of explored polyamory, and I started out in a relationship with my partner that I've been with for a really long time, and we kind of just over time, just communication and talking, and just things happen naturally and organically. Nothing that we ever would have even thought, or not even thought, but just, well, yeah, I guess not even thought. And it just kind of came about and we went with the flow and it's
So you said you guys have been together a long time. How long have you guys, how long were you guys together before you decided to like engage in a throuple?
we were together for 8 years, 8 years.
Yeah.
And Yes, and after that, we were in the throuple for about 8 months, roughly.
Okay, so you guys met in high school then?
Yes, I was 15. He was 17, going on to 18, and we've been together ever since.
Wow, that's awesome. So that's a whole other layer because, you know, engaging in a polyamorous, I can't say that word. It's like
It's
the
a hard
R.
one, yeah.
I fucked it up every time I said it.
It's hard because there's polyamory and polygamy, and it's like, which one's which? And
they're not the same thing at all. And I think sometimes people kind of, like, when they think polyamory, they think polygamy, and so there's a lot of like stigma attached to it because people don't understand. But anyways, engaging in a polyamorous relationship is hard in itself, but let alone like opening up a relationship that was monogamous before and turning that into something that's polyamorous can be even more stressful.
Absolutely.
So whose idea was it, and did you guys like kind of struggle with it, or how did it come about, I guess?
So early, before we even started dating, we would just talk, and I wanted to be as open as possible, me at like 15, 16. I knew at the time that I was into women. I was also into men. And, that was like I just remember one of our early conversations, hey, I like women. I don't know how you feel about that, but, I have a lot of experience with women. And, that's something that I want to engage in. I'm still figuring that out with me being 16, 15. But, that is something that I'm interested in. And he was like, that's awesome. And I appreciate you for sharing that with me. And throughout our whole 8 years, he would let me explore with women and talk to other women, engage, and, whatnot. And with the throuple, I was this girl, we were at a party, and we had been to prior engagements, and I'm an open book. I'll tell you, whatever. If you ask me, I'll let you know. I'm pretty open to talk about whatever, and I try not to be judgmental because I wouldn't want somebody to be that way with me. So, going to these parties with like girls and just being open and honest. This girl, I think from seeing that, she asked me if I would kiss her, if I would be her first girl kiss, and I caught me by surprise. I was like, hell yeah. So after that, I kind of developed a crush on her and would invite her over, and all of us being together, because he lives with me. Or we live together. And I think just seeing our relationship and seeing how we were together, she was interested. And I'm trying to pinpoint like exactly when it all happened. But I think it just happened organically, like just me and her first, kind of, flirting. And then I'd be like, you should come over and let's like have dinners. And I don't cook, he cooks. So just I think her seeing the love that we had for each other, she kind of wanted
to be a part of it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's like interesting to me because there wasn't really like a formal conversation where you were like, was there a moment where you sat down with him and you were like, hey, do you want to do this, or how do you feel about this, or did you kind of just feel like you guys were all on the same page the whole time anyways?
I think I want to say that, and I may be wrong, but I think the way I remember it is we were just hanging out so much, and it just felt natural. I think I was the one that was like, should we make this like an official thing? And, I think they just agreed, and it just kind of happened in that way. But I will say it was there was lots of challenges throughout.
I bet.
everything.
Yeah, which I'll get into that with some of you in a second. So would you say did they have a relationship with each other as well? Like it wasn't just you and her, like him and her also had a relationship?
I would say, I know in the beginning she told me, when I first met you and, and him, she said that, okay, that's Camryn's boyfriend. He's off limits. Because I don't think I ever thought of anything like that. But I knew for a little bit that we were attracted to each other. And that's a great question. Like, because.
Well, were you not did you witness them having a relationship outside of you guys, or did it feel like would they go and do things without you, or what did that look like?
Yeah, in the beginning, I would say it was more so just her and I. And then I feel like she may have been nervous to do things or go out of her way to make a separate relationship with him in the beginning. Yeah. Because we didn't really set any ground. We kind of just told ourselves we were going to go with the flow. So I know he and I would have our private conversations separately, but then that her, I really don't know.
Yeah. I guess I'm wondering because when I think of polyamory, the polyamorous relationships that I've seen or talked to people about, I met this couple, this married couple at a pool that I worked at when I was a lifeguard. And they obviously were married, had been married, and each of them had she had a boyfriend and he had a girlfriend outside of their marriage. And they were obviously aware of who the other person was.
Right.
And I guess they had what's called a family style polyamorous setup where, or a kitchen table, I think is what it was called, where everyone's welcome. The boyfriend and the girlfriend would come over and meet the kids and stuff. It was very involved. But the husband wasn't attracted obviously to her boyfriend, and she wasn't attracted to his girlfriend.
Right.
It was separate things. They were friendly, but it wasn't four people romantically involved.
Right.
So I guess in your situation, I'm wondering if it was more mainly you and her, and he would jump in if it was sexual, or if you're watching a movie, or if it's something more casual, or if it was he had a romantic relationship with you and he had a romantic relationship with her, or if you felt it was mainly at your discretion, where you felt you were kind of determining how much of a relationship she had with him.
I think that as time went on, their separate relationship grew.
That didn't bother you at all?
No.
Mm.
Because he and I, prior to the throuple, knew that, we had the agreement that it's okay if you want to go out and experience with other women or whatever the case may be, and vice versa. If he wanted, or women,
you guys
men,
had that for both of each other?
Yes. So
the whole 8 years, or was that
yes.
Really? The whole time it's been like that?
But in the beginning, we really didn't explore that option that much. And I don't know, he was never one to really want to go out and do that, but he did have that option. And so when it came to that, however, I think just he's the relationship just being organic, I think them spending more time and then her realizing, okay. And the more our conversations would go on and, we'd talk about, yeah, he is I can do what I want to do. He can do what he want to do. I think she did get a lot more comfortable throughout the relationship, and him as well, doing something totally new and brand new, but knowing that he had that option. So he did start to take advantage of it throughout the relationship.
Okay. So basically you guys have had an open relationship for like the entire time that you've been together. Not that you've always like acted on it, but did you set that when you were like 15 and 16 years old? Like you said that. Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know. Thinking back, I'm like,
because that's not something I even like. Well, so to be fair, I grew up like Catholic, so it could just be, you know, how I was taught growing up. I know that Jasmine had mentioned that your dad was like a musician. So I think like those are obviously different lifestyles. I don't know how he lived or whatever, but I didn't grow up with polyamory as a concept at all. It's something that I started to research once I got into a long-term relationship and felt like, ooh, why do I feel this way? Is this normal? Does this make me a bad person? How do I control this? Is it something that needs to be controlled? Should we act on it? Should I fight it or go? Like I started, it kind of just was a feeling that I felt kind of a rise in me. But not at 15 years old. So it's really interesting to me that you guys have just been on the same page from the get-go.
Yeah.
So you said that he didn't really act on that a lot. Did you act on that a lot? Like, were you with other men and other women throughout the 8 years or 10 years you guys have been together besides your throuple?
So, yes, when I was, I knew I liked women since I can remember. I knew I liked kissing them. I knew I liked, you know, whatever. So when we started talking, he, you know, we kind of just made it, you can say whatever, tell me whatever, you know, we trusted one another with whatever. And I wanted to make that clear on my end, like, okay, just say how you feel, whatever, and vice versa. And so I just felt really comfortable letting him know, like, okay, yeah, I like women and blah, blah, blah. So throughout the relationship, I did, you know, I have a lot of, like, girlfriends, and I do a lot of, like, traveling and trips and stuff. So I would act on that and explore that. And he's always had the option to, but never really.
Really? Like, the whole time until the throuple?
Mm-hmm.
Really? That's
Except
crazy.
for, like, we've, like, sexually done some stuff, but other than that, like, actually going out on his own, no.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
It's like a whole new concept, because you'd think that, I don't know, it just makes me think about, like, if you give people, I mean, when you're talking about, like, cheating and relationships and just the human brain and things like that, like, there's a bunch of research. I talked about this in a couple episodes back, but when you have, like, restraints and you have things that you're not supposed to do, like it's a big no, or it's like red, like that's not allowed. There's something in us that makes us want to do it more. So I think about, you know, did him having that option prevent you guys from having a relationship where there would have been infidelity or cheating or trust issues? You know what I mean? And it's kind of ironic and crazy to think about letting the reins go actually means that there's less of that. But there could be, you know, some science behind that, actually.
I would love to know that, because everything is so fascinating to me.
So you guys haven't really, so like a lot of people can't even begin to fathom polyamorous relationships or open relationships, swingers, stuff like that, because of the jealousy factor. Have you guys never experienced like jealousy in your relationship? Like, can you remember times where you've been like, oh, that makes me feel some type of way, or has that just not been a thing for you guys?
Oh yeah, definitely. But I think where we would thrive in that is just having like the hard conversations and just communicating whatever, nasty, ugly, whatever it may be, and just trying to go through with it with kindness and understanding and with an open mind, and knowing at the end of the day, okay, we do have each other and we do love each other. So let's talk this through. And, I don't want you to feel jealous. I don't want you to feel this way. So how do we resolve that? So
was it more like, since he wasn't really acting on it, was it more him coming to you with jealousy since you were the one that was like more active outside the relationship?
A lot of the jealousy would either be like miscommunication. So for instance, I'll say this story. So I was on my little Tinder date with this girl, but I was too scared to tell her that I had a partner, because I don't know. I have anxiety. I'm very quiet. I'm very just, whatever. If it comes up, it's going to come up. But me, I didn't bring it up. And we had went on a couple dates, and we hooked up a couple of times, and he's like, okay, well, when are you going to tell her about me? And I'm like, well, I don't know how to. And like, I don't want to, I didn't want like anything else but to hook up with this girl. And in my mind, I was like, if I tell her, I didn't know. So like stuff like that. But then we would communicate it, and I figured out a way to tell her. And turns out she's like, girl, that's great that your man lets you do stuff like this. You should have just told me from the jump. And I'm just like, see, communication can solve everything.
Yeah. I have a communication degree. So that's like,
that's amazing.
You don't have to convince me. You're like preaching to the choir,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's interesting. Yeah, I understand where he's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it were the other way around, like when I had tried to open up one of my relationships, there was some conflict because when you're talking about doing that, there are certain things, like certain ways, just on a cultural level, where men and women are different. Mm-hmm. So he kind of made the argument that, okay, if we're going to do this, if we're going to open our relationship up and you're allowed to be with guys and I'm allowed to be with girls, it looks different for us, because with guys, he's like, they're not going to care that you have a boyfriend. Mm-hmm. Like, you could tell them I have a boyfriend and they're going to be like, cool, I'm going to hit anyways. But with girls, he was like, it's different because they will feel some type of way if I say I have a girlfriend. So he wanted to like go about it in a way where he was like not telling them about me. And I'm like, well, it's not fair to me, and it's also not fair to them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Your situation's a little different because just feel like the LGBT community is different in terms of how they think of sexuality and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But from like a straight perspective, operating from that basis, it just felt kind of like wrong to me. Mm-hmm. Because I felt like, oh, well, what if she ends up like having a romantic attraction to you and wanting to pursue something with you, and then you tell her? Like, it's just deceitful. And I feel like something like this doesn't work unless it's an open book and everything is like completely honest. Yeah. But you figure that out through bumps and mm-hmm. things like that. Mm-hmm. So I definitely understand where he's coming from. Have you experienced jealousy like towards him? Like, if he's has he shown interest in women at all, or do you feel like it's really just you that he's attracted to?
I know that he has interest in other women, and I'm like, go explore that as much as you're willing to, if you want to. And I think he does, and this is my opinion, I don't know, but he may feel that with women they won't understand like the situation,
like kind of what I was just saying.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, you'll never know unless you try, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. That's so interesting to me because I don't know. I guess it's just like hard for me to conceptualize a relationship where it's really like that free of jealousy. You know what I mean? Just from my personal experience and other relationships that I've witnessed and things like that. So have you experienced jealousy at all? Like,
of course.
Okay, because I'm just like kind of blown away, because even me being more like I guess, open-minded about things like this and being really familiar with, like, the lifestyle, and not necessarily because I personally lived it, but just from, like, a lot of research and talking to people. I'm pretty open to stuff like this and understanding. Even, like, as a human, you saying, like, oh, yeah, I tell him, like, go explore that however much you want to. Even in me, there's, like, a little string that's plucked that's like, ooh, I don't know. I have abandonment issues, so maybe that's what it is. Maybe you just grew up healthy and, like, it's not even a thought for you where you feel like I'm going to lose this person. But I do think that, like, for a lot of people, it's like the fear of, oh, if they experience something better, whether it's like physically or emotionally or mentally, whatever it is, does that mean that they're not going to want me anymore? That's like really the root of jealousy.
Absolutely.
So how does that feel like to not be a worry for you? Why is that not a worry for you? Do you just feel like at the end of the day, it's always you guys, no matter what?
I know for me personally, that's what it is. And I just feel like from the conversations we've had, like, I just trust and know that. But I mean, of course, there's always in my mind, like, okay, well, don't have too much fun, but also have fun, because that's what I've been doing, and it's not fair that I've been able to take advantage of that and you have not. So he may do it and love it, and then that's something that I feel like we could talk about. I just feel like every situation, it will be okay with conversation until it's not, maybe, I guess, but well, so far it's worked out.
Yeah, well,
nicely.
You mentioned that you guys aren't together right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, in some people's minds, that would be, oh, well, it didn't work out, or it's not working out. So what has made you guys decide to be not together, and what does that actually look like? Like, if you guys still see each other and you had the option to be with other people anyways while you were together and you live together, like, what does it mean when you say, like, oh, we're broken up?
Yeah, so I mean, right now we're kind of like focusing on ourselves and putting all the energy that we would each other into just ourselves. But with that being said, I'm always there for him no matter what, however he may need me, and I feel vice versa. So, and at the end of the day, I know I want him in my life always.
Yeah.
No matter, regardless of what's happening. So, yeah, and there was something I was going to say about the throuple, but I forgot. Oh, there was lots of jealousy in the throuple. You know,
from her or
from
all you guys, or
for me, I know that there would be like certain so with me, I just wanted to know everything and be involved. And I think that's why for me, it's not that is it jealousy, or is it like just wanting to know everything? I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, I feel like when it's jealousy, like, it's not a good feeling. It's like a nasty, threatening, kind of like low vibrational feeling where it's just like you don't feel good, you feel like you need to be reassured. Not, but like, that's also just communicating, like, being reassured and being involved. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say that's jealousy. Jealousy is when you feel scared that someone or something is going to take something that you have. That's literally like the dictionary definition somewhere. I learned the difference between envy and jealousy, and envy is like when you long for something that you don't have, and jealousy is the threat of losing something you do have. Okay. So it feels like you're losing this person is what jealousy would feel like. Wanting to know what's going on and be updated, or, hey, can you just keep me? I wouldn't say that that's necessarily jealousy, Yeah. So when you say, like, there's jealousy in the throuple, is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about like something different? Like, would she get upset if you were spending, like, if she felt like you were spending more time with him? Or
no, I think I really don't feel that there was lots of jealousy within the throuple. There was, I would say, a lot of miscommunication, and people, not people, because there was 3 of us. Sometimes, you know, somebody could feel left out, and in that sense, I think that was like a lot of what we would struggle with. So I don't know if that's jealousy or if that's just, you know, just feeling left out or whatever. But we did struggle with that a lot in the relationship.
I think that's natural, just as like as humans, you know, especially when there's, you know, even when I was like younger and had my friends, if there's, I don't remember who told me this, if it was like one of my parents or a teacher, I don't know, but they were like, when you like travel in odd numbers, it's odd, which means there's the opportunity for someone to get left out. And I did have like a group of like I had 2 best friends in middle school, and I definitely experienced jealousy and feeling left out, where I was like, they don't even care if I'm here, you know, and that happens naturally, I think, especially with groups of 3. There's the potential for that. So that makes sense to me, and that's something that I would say probably was jealousy. It's just crazy to me that I have to like, not that it's a bad thing, it's great for you to kind of like live with less of that in your life, but it really like is mind-boggling for me to think about how it's just not a concept you're familiar with. Like, you almost have to kind of ask me and be like, what is jealousy? And I'm like, how nice that must be to not even be totally sure. Like, that's the goal. That's like so much of people's lack of peace, I think, stems from observing others, you know, and being like, I want what they have, or I'm scared that they're going to take what I have, you know? There's so many, like, so much stress and anxiety and grief and depression that is rooted in that. So I think it's really great. And probably why you guys have been able to work for so long. Because jealousy is one of those things that, like, really rips relationships apart from the inside out. So the fact that I guess it's just like, again, it's just hard for me to conceptualize how it's not really been something you've had to work through a lot. And just the fact, like, even if you as a person aren't a jealous person, then you still have the burden of finding somebody else who's not a jealous person. You know what I mean? And you guys have just like found that, which is really great. And I think probably means you guys were meant to be together. You know? So yeah, that's so was there, because a lot of the research talks about why these type of relationships work, and it's because there is no concept of cheating, of infidelity. But there are like boundaries. Like, for some people, there might be things that are like off limits, or, you know, you can't be sexual with people that I know, or people that I'm going to have to see every day, or you can't be sexual with an ex, or things like that. Were there limits to that with you guys? Like, were there things that were like, let's not go there?
I think for us, we kind of... Oh, sorry. I think for us, we kind of just wanted, you know, if you were feeling something, or, you know, you wanted to explore something else or whatever, just bring it to our attention. And part of why it didn't work out is because there was a lack of that. There was a lack of, not necessarily honesty, but just like not saying what things really are, or if you're, you know, interested in whatever, just not really bringing that to the table. And I know that within the relationship, we did kind of struggle with communication, and that's something that he and I never really did. So in the throuple, just having that constantly was a little bit of a lot of why, you know, everything didn't work out. So just not not that it wasn't people not being honest, but just not fully saying what things were or what things.
Saying how it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you guys ended the throuple, is that also when you guys, like, as a couple, decided to, like, separate from each other? Or did you guys stay together after she kind of...
Yeah, we were together for a little bit, and then after that, we just kind of decided to just
take a break
and work on ourselves.
I get that. So basically, there weren't things that, like, you specifically laid out that you were like, because I know when I was, like, talking about opening up one of my relationships, I had specifically said, like, please just don't put me in a situation where I'm going to be in a room with somebody and they're going to have done something with you and I will have no idea. Yeah. And it will, just as a human, like, it would hurt my pride. It would make me uncomfortable. And I, you know, it's a real small town here, really. Yeah. Like, even no matter how many people are here, everyone knows everyone somehow, especially if you've lived here your whole life, which we both had. And so I just kind of asked it to, like, not be in my circle, not be someone who I could easily run into. And that was, like, a boundary for me. That was, like, a line for me that I didn't want to cross because I did feel jealousy. It even felt, like, unnatural to be like, okay, you go do that, because we were not like that from the beginning. Like, it was not something, you know, we were, like, monogamous. And we had also dealt with some infidelity, which makes it hard, because then you're already, like, having this lack of trust. And then polyamorous or open relationships, anything of that nature, requires so much trust. So it really just was, like, not the right choice for us at that time, because we weren't secure the way it sounds like you guys were secure. So, but you're basically saying as long as they discussed it with you, then you could find a way to work it out. And
I think, looking back now, I wish we would have. I didn't know to set boundaries and, like, stuff like that. And I wish I kind of would, like, we knew that it was, if you feel any type of way, like, let people know. But I think that with it being a throuple, we were all learning, and it was all a learning experience. And now, if I were to ever do it again, I know exactly what I want. You know, this time I would definitely set some strict boundaries.
What would those be? Like, what would that look like?
Yeah. So I think throughout the process of the relationship, I was learning, I was trying to figure out, okay, how poly am I? Like, because it's a spectrum. I feel like there's so many, like, I was talking to my sister yesterday, and you just mentioned it earlier, being poly, and then you separately, you guys could have your own relationship. I never even thought of that. It's always just, like, a learning thing, and just, like, so many things. But I think for me now, I would strictly just want it to be the throuple. I wouldn't want, you know, for me to be talking to anybody else outside of it, or him or her. I would just strictly want it to be that.
Like a three-way relationship between all of you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
And not, because in the beginning, I thought that, you know, I was poly enough to the point where, okay, we're together, but I also want to be talking to this person, and that. I thought, no.
Yeah.
And I quickly learned that. And so I wish we would have done that prior, because I think things would have worked out.
Yeah.
But,
well, it's hard to make one relationship work, let alone adding, like, another one or another one. Like, I have heard about some people having, like, multiple, like, you know, maybe you're a wife and then you have two boyfriends. But the thing is, like, at the end of the day, there's some quote, and I can't remember what it is, but it has something to do with how time is the currency of relationships. So there's only so many hours in a day, and you're also your own individual person outside of all of your relationships with friends or romantic relationships or family, anything. You still are your own person. So finding a way to like manage work and manage 2 relationships and manage like a relationship with your family and with your friends, like it becomes hard to do. So I do think that there's probably a limit. There's not a lot of research on poly, obviously, because it's like this new concept.
Right.
Well, not new, but kind of like coming to the light more openly recently. But I'm sure that once they start researching like these types of relationships, they'll probably find like a magic number based on like certain lifestyles. So if you're someone that has like more time, like a lot, like you work from home, or maybe like you're just rich and don't have to work, there's probably more time for more relationships. But if you're like in a family with kids and work full time, like you probably, there's a limit to how much time you can give to other people.
Absolutely.
So I think that boundaries around like maybe spending time together would also probably be something that, you know, if I were to ever do something like this, that would be a big thing for me. Because there's those love languages, right? Like those 5 languages of love. And one of them is quality time. So you're then managing the needs of like multiple people. So for one person, it's quality time. And then another person, it's like, you know, words of affirmation. It's a lot easier to make that person feel loved by just sending like some messages about, I love you, I'm thinking of you, sorry I can't be with you, versus another person, you might send that to them and they're like, this doesn't mean shit to me, I want you to be here with me, you know? So I think that, you know, it gets difficult. So I'm sure you probably learned that, you know, trying to manage different people's styles of love. Would you say that you were in love with this other person, that you loved them?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're still struggling. It's a mess.
Yeah. As relationships are.
But I know that we all love each other, and I feel like, you know, I always say maybe one day, I don't know, maybe we just need time to figure things out. I don't know, but.
Do you keep in contact then? Like you, all 3 of you keep in contact? Okay, so it wasn't like, was it a mutual decision then, like where you just felt like it wasn't working?
Yeah, it just came to a point where communication, I know for me, I can be very passive aggressive. So just letting things build up. And then for him, I know towards the end, he just felt neglected by her. And I know for her, you know, I don't know, we all just had our different things. So, yeah, boo.
I get that. Yeah, I mean, it's just difficult, like I was saying, to make one relationship work, let alone managing the needs of 2 people. So I'm sure like that adds so much, you know, to the table.
Absolutely.
What would you say was like the biggest challenge with you guys? Was it time? Was it, like you said, like the lack of communication? Or what did you feel like made it the hardest for you to make it work?
I would say lack of communication. There would be times where, you know, they would be stronger. And maybe this does coincide with like jealousy. And I'd be like, okay, well, maybe I'm not meant to, like, maybe you two should be together. There would be moments of that.
Yeah.
But I knew that I wanted to be with them. So we would like talk about it and figure it out. And, you know, it would kind of like go, her and I would be good, then him and her, or, you know, whatever. And then there would be moments where we're all good. But then when it just started to get to a place where all 3 of us weren't
happy,
then it's just like, okay, like, I don't know what more we can do.
Yeah. That makes sense. For sure. So when you guys would, obviously, like, do you have a relationship with like your parents and siblings and friends and stuff like that, like outside of, like, do you talk to your family?
Yes.
Okay.
My sister lives with me, and I'm very close with my mom. It's so funny because we just moved into a house, and it's like 10 minutes from her, and she's like, that's still kind of far.
Yeah. So. Okay. So, and your dad?
Yeah. So my dad, he was a musician. He passed when I was 8.
I'm sorry.
In 2006. So I wasn't really close as close as I would have liked because he was on the road a lot and stuff like that. But me and my mom were like this, and me and my sister are like this too.
Okay. So they've been accepting then of your like choice. Did they know about the throuple or?
It's so funny because I've never openly like talked to them about it, but they're around. They were around it the whole time. Especially with my sister living with me, and we would go on trips. For my birthday, we all went to Costa Rica, and my mom treated her just like me or like she would anyone. And you know, I think my mom, she knows that I have like good sense of character, so she just, you know, whatever I'm doing, she trusts me. So
That's great. So she never asked like, who is this person? Like
like if me and her weren't talking, she'd be like, well, where is she? And I'd be like, well, we're not talking right now. And she's like, well, I thought that was like your ace. Like, what do you mean? And, you know, so stuff like that. But I've never really openly talked to my mom about like my sexuality with me being pansexual or being in a throuple. I don't know. If she would ever ask me, then yeah. But I feel like him and my partner and my mom would talk about it more than I would, just because.
But you feel like she'd be accepting if you were to like tell her about.
Oh yeah, no, she knew, she knows, so she is. She supports me in whatever I do, which I'm very grateful for because I know that it's not like that for a lot of people. So.
Right. Did your friends and stuff know too? Like, was there anyone in your circle or in your community that kind of like gave you a side eye or was not very supportive of like that lifestyle or that choice?
Yeah. I personally have not run into that. I like to surround myself with like-minded people and just people that I know are going to be kind. And if not, like, you can say what you're going to say, but okay, I'm going to kindly, you know, never talk to you again.
Yeah, right.
So
yeah, I see that you're friends with Sophia. I actually interviewed her. Like,
she's my bestie.
Yeah. Great soul. So I can tell that like you're around good people, and that's probably one of the most important things. Outside of like, you know, you having a good relationship and good communication with your partner, them having good relationships with the rest of your circle is also really important to like a lasting relationship. So that's really good for you. I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. In your opinion, why do you feel like there are certain negative stigmas and stereotypes attached to polyamory?
I think one, with jealousy or people not really having the comfortability with talking about things like this. They just want to go based off of what they're taught and can be very closed-minded, don't want to hear anything else, or don't want to share a partner. But I just feel like for me, I have so much love, and, you know, I feel like a lot of people can feel like that. So that doesn't make them wrong. And they should be able to express themselves and talk about it how they please, just like you do in your, you know, however you go about your life or whatever it may be. So
right. Yeah. I think that a lot of, well, first of all, it's because it's not common. So anything that's like outside of the norm, people have an opinion on. Absolutely. You know. I think religion also is probably like one of the biggest reasons why people aren't real comfy with the idea, because it would shake up everything they believe to be true about, like, you know, the Bible story about it being one man and one woman.
Yeah.
And like consummating that relationship. I think that that's a huge one.
Also, I grew up Christian, so
okay.
I get it, but I don't know, there's so many things there's just so much out there. There's so many things to learn, and just constantly just learn and try to be open-minded if you can be. But
one of my questions that I wanted to ask you was how important communication was in making your relationship work. But you've obviously like made that super clear from the get-go that was everything.
Everything.
So basically in communications, there are two different branches. There's rhetoric, which is, in my personal opinion, all the really boring shit about like Socrates and Aristotle and philosophy and the Greeks and sophists and all that stuff that's very like public speaking and stuff like that. And then there's an interpersonal side, which is basically relationships, whether it's romantic or your friends or a business relationship or familial. Like, it's basically how we communicate in relationships and why. So obviously I learned a lot about making relationships work, specifically romantic relationships. A lot of the papers that I wrote and the research that I did was surrounded on the concept of a romantic relationship. And there's this researcher named John Gottman, and he's like super, he's like more of like one of those popular psychologists that a lot of people have heard about and read his books and stuff. And he did this really famous study on it, and the reason it was famous because it was so long. It was like over like 20 or 25 years or something, where he kept in contact with the same couples from like that he met 20 years ago. And the first time that he met them, he basically had them talk about something that was conflicting. So he was like, just talk, like bring up something that you guys have been struggling with and like have a conversation about it, and he'd record it. And he was able to predict with like 94% accuracy who was going to be together 20 years later and who wasn't, which is like really high, like statistically speaking, and in research, that's a really high number.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was because like the way a couple handles conflict is like the number one thing that determines if they're going to stay together or not. Because conflict is going to happen and it will make or break you. And oftentimes it's because of how you talk about it. So one thing that like rocked another relationship could make another relationship stronger. And it's not just how you talk, it's also like, you know, your background and stuff like that. But there's these things, concepts, words, called the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And the way he was able to predict how long they were going to be together is if they had these 4 things present in their relationship. One of them is defensiveness. So if someone is like talking to you and they're getting real butthurt, like that's not me, like that's you, or like you're being sensitive, or like, no, that's not how I meant it, like, you know, just basically not able to take ownership. And then there's criticism. So it's like, instead of criticizing the action of that person, you're criticizing them as a person. Like, you always do this, you're so selfish, you're so that. When it's not the person, it's the thing that they did that made you feel that way. And then there's withdrawing or stonewalling, which is like the person shuts down. So, like, if you're a super emotional person and you're trying to talk to someone who just, like, doesn't want to do it, they're like, I'm not talking about this right now. Like, you're getting too emotional, like, you need to calm down, I'm not doing this. That's stonewalling. And then the most corrosive one, like the worst one, is contempt. So it's basically like hate for your partner, where you say things about, like, you know, you're a fucking bitch, or things that are really toxic and they're meant to like hurt that person. So if you're saying something that you know is going to really hurt that person, that's contempt. So if you have all 4 of them, it's kind of like it's not going to work out, you know, because, you know, if you're not doing it now, how are you going to find it in you, especially if you don't have like a therapist or some like outside party who's able to recognize that and be like, you guys aren't talking to each other healthy. Most likely it's going to fizzle out, you know, or blow up, one or the other. So that's how I know that you guys must talk well to each other, is if you're able to be together this long.
I'm going to tell you, communication is hard, and it's not. We've gone through all of those.
Right. So have I. Right. Like,
yeah.
But you learn.
Yeah. But it's, at the end of the day, we always remember to come back and be patient and be kind, be honest, and respect each other and boundaries and stuff like that at the end of the day. So, you know, we've had some rough conversations, but we always come back and remember, like, okay, you know, I respect you, you respect me, so let's resolve this the right way. And, we always give ourselves the time to come back to it again and resolve it in a better manner.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of boundaries and like communicating and stuff, one of the things that I'm wondering about is how you guys kept like your sex safe, because especially if your guys' relationship was open and you were able to go be with people, however, did you have like a boundary where you're like, you need to get tested or you need to use a condom, or like if you're gonna go be with someone new, you need to get tested before you're with me again, or because like STDs, STIs can be passed with like saliva.
Yeah.
It's not just like penetration.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of boundaries did you guys have around that? How did you guys keep each other safe in that way?
Yeah.
In the relationship and in the throuple?
Mm-hmm. For me, anytime I would go off and do what I would do with any woman, I would always make sure to test and make sure that I'm safe and I'm good. When it came to the throuple, it was just us, so we kind of just knew that, and but we always tried to be as safe as possible, because I think that's also a main thing with him, why he hasn't branched out, because he's worried about other people, and just like, people are scary, people just be doing stuff, but
Right. So it was kind of understood that in your throuple you guys were monogamous.
Mm-hmm.
So like she wasn't sleeping with other people, it was just with you two.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So do you think that you will continue to pursue relationships like this, or do you feel like you're just like, would you be interested in just being monogamous again, or do you think it's something that's going to have to be a part of your life like for the rest of your life?
Ooh. I think I liked the throuple. I had a lot of fun, so I am open to that again, but not just with anybody. And I don't think that I'll be seeking it. It would just have to happen naturally, like it did before. My goal is to get back with him one day, and maybe also all three of us together, because we did work very well together, and now we can pinpoint,
Where it went wrong.
Yeah. So, I think that's why we are working on ourselves individually. I've been going to therapy. He's been going to therapy. And I think just giving us the time and the space to do that, and then come back and maybe try again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like, because obviously polyamorous marriages are not recognized under the law.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that this is like a big hypothetical and maybe thinking too far in the future. But like you said, if this is something that, a lifestyle you might continue to live, do you feel like there could be some difficulty if you wanted to like get married, since it would have to almost be like a choice, like,
Yeah.
which I guess it would make more sense for you guys to get married, since you had been together for 10 years and like this other person would just be added on, but then that could, make them feel like not as part of the relationship. Like, how would you manage something like that? Do you feel like polyamorous marriages should be recognized under the law?
I do. I think whatever works for people, it should happen, as long as it's positive and good. But for me personally, I'm not I've always said this, for marriage, I want a ceremony and I want a ring, and that's about it. I don't want to we don't have to sign stuff. We're in love. We know that. So I think for me, it would, if we ever got to the place, the three of us, and, I think we would all have really nice rings, not to be materialistic, but, and have like a really nice ceremony, and just, to celebrate our love, and the people who love us celebrate it with us. And that's enough for me. But I can see how for others, they would want that. Just as somebody being in a monogamous relationship, they would want that for them. And I think that that's fair, because it's valid. And I hope one day that can be recognized.
what advice would you, like, what's the one thing, or if there's multiple things, that's fine too, but what piece of advice would you give to someone or a couple considering starting a polyamorous relationship?
So cliche, but communicate as much as possible with kindness and honesty, and just be honest even when it's like hard, and set the boundaries that you need and respect each other's boundaries. That's a big thing, because sometimes
if you break the boundaries, it's like the same thing as, cheating in a monogamous relationship.
Yeah.
It's like it's a betrayal.
It is.
So.
And it hurts. So
right.
Don't do it.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add that, like, I didn't already cover, or that you wanted to talk about or get off your chest?
I think that we
hit all the bases.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, well, thank you, Camryn, for your time. I really appreciate it, and you being so honest and candid about everything going on in your life.
Of course.
If any of you guys would like to continue the conversation with her or have additional questions that I didn't cover today, I will have her contact information available on my YouTube and social media. Thank you all so much for your support this season and every other season, and I will see you all next season to talk more elephants.